I don't know if that's the same thing at all, but that's the main puncture wound there.
Caramba.
Yeah. My glove, I turned my glove inside out because it's like fabric back and rubber fingers.
Yeah.
So there's a big patch of blood on the inside of the glove where it got me.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix versus Cinema, the podcast that asks that question, Netflix or cinema, where are you going to spend your hard-earned money? My name is Tosin and I am your slightly under-the-weather host based up in Coventry, in the Midlands. And joining me on the Isle of Wight are Sharon.
Hello.
And Shaun.
Hi, you guys.
Right, so now this is a week in which... Well, there's a lot of things that's happened. There's been a new James Bond trailer that's been released. There's been a new Black Widow trailer that's been released. Have you guys seen any of those?
I haven't, personally.
No.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, okay.
No, we haven't seen them.
Okay, you have a look at the James Bond trailer, and then I will have a chat next week because I was speaking to Holly, our London correspondent, on Twitter, and she was like, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "Yeah, It's a curious sort of combination of punch the air moments and moments that make me go, I'm not sure about that. Where's that going? So yeah, but okay, have a look at that. And
I didn't see it being filmed, but I did hear the Bond film being filmed off the island this summer.
Really?
We were warned that it was going to be filmed off the coast of Ventnor, and we're in a couple of our gardens. We saw helicopters and we heard the sounds of, racing and zooming about. So I am aware that it was filmed off the coast of the island.
Oh, what?
Yeah. And the band's not quite so bad.
Yeah. And if they have any long shots and they see gardeners lurking about a cliff-top garden, that could be me.
Yeah, you see, now I'm going to have to reevaluate every single shot in this trailer that films them on water. Because,
see if it reminds you of like Steep Hill Cove or Ventnor, something like that. Oh. That's where we heard it. We were just above Ventnor.
Oh, because you see, now we used to have another podcast called They Don't Make Them Like They Used To. Well, because we were based on the Isle of Wight, we had a section which was called Isle of Movies, where we spoke about movies that were filmed on the Isle of Wight. I did not expect James Bond.
We can now add a Bond to we can add Bond to the list.
I did not expect James Bond to make the cut. So... But now he is in the illustrious company of films like the David Essex starring That Will Be the Day. But
that's it, the highlight.
All right, so but that's happened this week. But the real big news this week is that Sharon, you had your own Jurassic Park incident, didn't you? This week you had you had a life or death experience with some creepy crawly beastie.
Yes, I didn't actually see it, but I have been told that I have been attacked by a false widow spider, and it bit me on the hand. And apparently, I was pruning back some diseased hellebores, which are not normally and they were covered in tiny little mites. And I thought they're not big enough to bite me, but apparently I did feel something hit me on the hand, and I just assumed it was a bramble or a thorn or something that I would just brushed aside. So I didn't think anything more of it at the time, and then I started developing a severe reaction the next day, so it was not even immediate. But yes, a false widow spider got me. Apparently they do attack you if you take them by surprise. And they are Britain's most venomous spider.
Yeah, they're not originally from British, are they?
No, they've
arrived.
Milder climes like the Isle of Wight, especially this was in Shalford, and I was in an old mill house, so there was water nearby, so they do like water, and they like lurking in shrubbery, so it got me. And so I'm still running a temperature, and my hand is still quite a bit higher, bigger than it should be.
You see, as soon as I see anything like that, I think, is it a false widow?
You see, now, I've never heard of a false widow spider before this. I'd never seen one of them, and after the picture that you put on from Facebook, which I will put onto a Twitter account onto the Facebook page for the podcast. After the picture that I've seen, I don't want to be anywhere near one of these things, because oh my God, that looks evil. I feel essentially the picture you put of your hand looks like the scene in a horror movie before something bursts out of a human body and starts killing everybody.
I had put hydrocortisone on it, and it did start oozing really majorly. It was just the most oozing.
But so they actually punctured your gloves. You had gloves on.
I had gloves on at the time.
Wow. That must be.
They're like fabric gloves with rubber fingers and rubber soles.
Oh, yeah.
So the back of the glove is like breathable fabric, so that your hands don't go all slimy. So it stabbed me through the fabric back. Because I said, oh, there's a black spot on my glove, and it was blood. I didn't notice it at the time because I do, as you said, gardening. You always, there's thorns and bristles and brambles.
Those old pyrocanthers, they can be nasty.
They're nasty. They are,
aren't they? I got a big thorn in that once before.
So yeah, it's not unusual for me to go out and then ignore it, but this time it wasn't ignorable.
No.
And you were going all stiff upper lip thing about it, going, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure. And my wife's a doctor, and I showed her the picture, and she and she essentially, I think you have a voicemail now from us, which is pretty much like, go to the hospital now. It was, if I could paraphrase, this voicemail was like, this is not a drill. We are not joking. Get your butt to the hospital. Do not wait until tomorrow.
No, I did go to the out-of-hours clinic. I rang them up and I said, this is the situation. I said, I don't want to make a fuss about this, but I have been advised I need to get someone have a look at this. And they're like, oh, yeah, come in. I said, are you sure you want me to come in? It's like, yeah, come in. I thought, well, okay. I said the doctor, I said, I don't want to make a fuss about this. I said, you're not making a fuss about it. We need to,
Yeah.
And so, I have got antibiotics to treat the inflammation.
Treat the wound.
Yep. Okay.
Treat the wound, you poor thing. I'll tell you what, Tosin, can I just ask you a question?
Yes.
In Nigeria, is there many creepy, crawly, horribly
Yeah, there must be bitey, stingy things there.
Yeah, there are bitey, stingy things. I don't think anything I don't remember ever being bitten or by anything that would give me alarm. Like we never. Well, okay, we have snakes, I guess. But
snakes, yeah.
we have snakes. I remember that we used to, for a while, we lived in the east of the country in a city called Aba, and when we lived there, I think they speak a different language to the one that my family does. So they speak Igbo out there, and one of the first words we learned in Igbo was agwo, which means snake. Because that was something you needed to learn how to shout. But,
yeah.
And we did kill a couple so maybe they were. I never got bitten by anything. I never got attacked by anything. But we do have them. Yeah, I guess it's tropical climates. You do have things that can kill you. But I don't know many people who. I personally don't know many people who've been attacked by one of them. So, but anyway, the bottom line is Sharon. Sharon, happy to have you. Happy that you're still here. Happy you're getting it treated.
Yeah, still here.
And you've given me one more thing to sort of haunt my dreams at night. But
if you don't stick your hand in a bush, or if you don't go rummaging around in an empty old shed, because they like sheds and they like bushes and shrubs and places. Mm-hmm. So as long as you sort of don't go inadvisedly sort of poking about in them, you should be okay. But gardeners get bitten a lot apparently.
Right. Gardeners and postmen, but by different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose they look like black widows, do they?
That's why they're called. They've got a marking on their back that makes them look like a black widow spider, but they are a false widow. I have seen them before, but I didn't see this one, so that's why it got me, because I just didn't see it.
You'll never see me coming.
The Mandarin. We like that.
All right, go. All right, now.
Sorry, Shaun.
Okay, so now that we've done the admin, we've done the righteous thing, we've checked. Sharon is okay.
Yeah.
And now let's carry on.
I'm still here.
Yes, let's carry on. And for our first film this week, Knives Out, we're going to do something that we haven't done before, which is somebody apart from the three of us is going to give us the lowdown of what this film's about. And that somebody, befittingly enough, is Superfan Nina. Now, we recorded this.
Hey.
Yeah, Superfan Nina, we love her. We recorded this last week when we were thinking that before we looked at the schedule and realized that there was so much stuff we had to talk about and there was nothing out this week, so we pushed it forward to this week. But first up, she has this, and I'm going to play the audio. I'm going to put this into the podcast. The audio of how she ended up seeing Knives Out 2 days before it was released, and also the what's the word? Experience that she had when she went to the cinema that has to do about cinema etiquette. And this is something I want to ask you guys about your opinion on. So we're going to play Superfan Nina now.
So, Tosin,
Yes.
Knives Out. Let's discuss Knives Out.
We're going to discuss Knives Out. So,
Yeah.
all right. So this film, it's so first, but before we see Knives Out, because we both saw this film, we're speaking on a Tuesday. Knives Out is not going to be released until tomorrow, which is the 27th. That's when it's on general.
Is it not?
No, it's not.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so I saw it on an Odeon Limitless preview screening, and you told me that, and that's just because I just got myself an Odeon Limitless card. But you told me that you won tickets to see Knives Out.
Yeah, so basically Sky VIP, they've got an app. So if you've got Sky,
Yep.
you get a VIP app and you can apply for tickets.
Yep.
And it's the first time I've ever done it. I only got the app like 2 or 3 days ago. And then I applied for the Knives Out and won tickets to go and see it in Shepherd's Bush.
Oh, nice.
So it takes me back to our student days of when we were kind of living around those areas.
Yes.
I was hanging around Shepherd's Bush. I was like, so a whodunit in Shepherd's Bush, like on a Monday, I was like, there's no way I'm going to give up these free tickets. And for free. I was like, no, there's no way. No way I'm not going to do this.
Did you go on your own or did you go with someone?
So Will was going to go with me because he also loves a whodunit. You know, we're both obsessed with Poirot, right?
Oh, yes.
And anything like that.
He loves his Agatha Christie, doesn't he?
Yeah, we both do. We're really into like any whodunit, like Frost, like Silent Witness, Poirot. So I was like, there's no way that I'm going to miss this. But basically, he was going to go and go with me, but he's got a big presentation or had a big presentation today. So he's like, oh, I really need to work. So I went by myself.
Oh.
I don't mind going to the cinema by myself, though. I think actually is the best way to go to the cinema.
Well, unless it is good, but as you said, you went to the cinema and you experienced one of those things that is one of the reasons why Netflix might win this war, which is
Tosin.
Which is other people.
I was so angry, Tosin. You would not believe it. So basically, I ended up getting there a little bit late because I decided to go and buy some snacks because there's a little shopping centre by the side. So I didn't get there late, but it said it starts at 6:30. I thought, there'll be trailers, everything will be fine. Actually, because it was a free screening, it started at 6:30. There were no trailers.
Yeah.
And also, the entire cinema was full, except for one seat.
Oh,
this
wow.
lady had her bag on the seat. I had to say, excuse me, can I sit there? Is there anybody sitting there? She was like, no, there's nobody sitting there, in a kind of way. I was like, okay, fine, no problem. I'll sit there then. It's the only seat left. I just came in with another guy, but I went just slightly ahead of him and got the last seat. And he ended up sitting on the stairs, which usually isn't allowed.
Oh, wow.
But I think because it was so full, they were like, okay, this is it was kind of seat stair kind of thing. It was a bit weird.
Yeah.
But basically, this lady, all the way through the first 30 minutes of the movie, was on her phone.
This is the lady who had a chair on her back, had a bag on a chair.
Yeah.
So she sat right beside you.
Right beside me on her phone. And I agree, fair enough. You're texting once, you need to check your phone. It's that we live in that kind of time, right?
Yeah.
But I've never been so angry. 30 minutes. And it was the key bit where, they're introducing everybody, they're telling everybody's backstory.
They're telling you who everybody is.
Yeah. And she's on her phone, and all I could look at, because I was not in a very good seat as well, so it's right close to the screen.
Yeah.
I was kind of looking up, so really she was I was kind of on the side, so where she was sat, her screen was right in my kind of peripheral vision.
Yeah.
So it was really distracting, and I had to say to her, I'm sorry, but could you put your phone away, please? She goes, I need to message someone. I was like, but you've been messaging somebody for the last 20 minutes. She goes, I need to send some more messages. And I was like, okay, I am here to see the movie and not your phone. She went, if you don't like it, go and complain. And continued to text on her phone, Tosin. I was angry. I'm not going to lie, I was angry. But one thing that I would say is that I think that she got the point because I was so angry. I think because I kept on doing that thing where you go, you know that... Yeah, I did that a lot.
Being totally British. How very British of you, Nina.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't get up and complain because I was too kind of, I didn't want to cause a fuss. But but basically, she didn't obviously finish off her text that she was texting then. And she made a big show of kind of texting a couple more texts to kind of say, I'm not putting my phone away because you told me to. I'm still texting. And then it was kind of like, and I'm done. Because she kind of kept her phone in her hand but turned it over. And then she sneakily snuck it into her bag. And I was like, yes, I've won. 40 minutes into the movie and I've won.
I can just imagine you going, yes, moral victory. Now, Daniel Craig, tell me what's happening.
I do feel like I've missed the intro to the movie though, so I'm going to go and see it again with Will because he missed it anyway.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to go and see it with Will and watch it probably.
Okay. And now that we're back, now we're back from hearing what Superfan Nina had to say about what happened to her in the cinema. Now, Sharon, when you heard this, you had last week you were talking about it, and you said you used the phrase "blood boil" when it came to this.
Oh yeah, it just made my. If I wasn't already running a fever, I would be now. It would make my temperature rise. Just the thought of that behaviour. I mean,
yeah,
I would be. That would certainly ruin my cinema experience. I would certainly be almost incandescent if someone had been that behaviour and to be that rude as well. I'd be like, oh no, you do not.
Was it with you when I had that chap turn around?
Yes, there was a chap who was. Oh, he didn't slap me.
Well,
I was with you with a guy who was very aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive.
It was quite funny. So Shaun, you've had because I know you've had at least one of these sort of experiences before. But
I've had a few.
Okay, so but this is one I haven't heard. Where someone hit you in a cinema.
Well, yeah, basically, I was, it was where the adverts were on and all like that.
Yeah, the trailers.
It wasn't the film was started, and this guy was very, very aggressive to me. He turned around, said something, and I said, yeah, okay, well, the film's going to start in a minute, and then about 3 seconds later, he turned around and said, I've told you, and sort of, he actually, not that it hurt, I mean, it was hard, but actually caught me on the knee and gave me a slap, and then the guy in another row, he turned over and he said, cut that out, stop being so aggressive. And I went, oh, thank you, my friend.
Yeah. But he went from sort of zero to being quite cross.
Yeah, quite cross, yeah.
The film hadn't even started.
So what was his problem? His problem was that you were talking or something, or what?
Yeah, I was talking, I was talking with Shaun. But I mean, the film wasn't on. So
it was during the trailers.
Yeah, during the trailers, yeah.
And I must admit, I think you can normally tell by the mood of the cinema if the trailer's a fair game or not. Because some cinemas, it's like, the cinema experience for them begins as soon as you walk through those doors. But there was murmuring and there was noise in the cinema, so it wasn't as if it was one of those quiet cinemas. But yeah, he was quite aggressive with it. I didn't like that at all. But look at I've had a similar experience to Nina's, but not quite so severe as that. But I was watching a film and there was two teenage girls who were sat about 5 or 6 rows in front of me. And then they had their phones out during the trailers. I thought, okay, well, it's the beginning. They haven't started. But they just never settled down. They were constantly, the phones were up, blue screens shining throughout the whole film. So every time they did this, obviously your attention is immediately drawn to this glowing screen. Yeah. Even though it was like 4 or 5 rows in front of me. So in the end, I got up and I was sat. There's several people next to me, but I got up and I climbed over them and I went down there and I said, you've got to put your phones away. You are disturbing the whole cinema. And they did apologise, actually. They said, oh, sorry, because I must have sounded like a teacher because I was like, you are disturbing the entire cinema by your behaviour.
You've let yourself down. You've let your family down.
You've let everybody. Yeah, it's true. Actually, that's
they did stop, actually, they did sat down because they were moving about. I said, Anne, you need to sit still and stop moving about because they were moving around in different chairs. So I was just giving a real telling off. And then I went and sat back, and we all enjoyed the rest of the film.
I remember my mate. This is going back now. It must have been about 1977, and I think it was we were rewatching a Bruce Lee film, and they were gang. I just said my mate, Paul. His name was Paul Weldon. Hi, Paul. I know I haven't seen you for however many years, and he was fearless. And in those days, it was a little bit more aggressive. And I remember there were some lads down the front. There was quite a big bunch of them, and they were making a noise. And he just turned and said, "Boy, lads, can you shut up, please?" And there was about 10 of them, right, on this row, and they turned around and went, said something nasty, told him where to go, and he went down there. He got out of his seat. He went down. And he picked one of them up and he said, "What did you say to me?" And they were like, "Oh, it was just..." And there was like 10 of them like that. But this guy was fearless. Totally. He wasn't going to take any notice. And in the end, all these blokes sort of went out. You know what I mean?
I think there are etiquettes. There is an etiquette for being in the cinema. I think because they used to have those cinema trailers, and a number of years ago, wasn't it? Like where it was like, shh, don't talk. Took your phone off, and it was basically spanning out how to behave in the cinema. Yeah. And I think in some ways they need to do something similar again. Say, you know what, it is not appropriate for you to have your phone on. It is not appropriate for you to be talking in the film, and it's not appropriate for you to be getting up and down every 5 minutes. So you need to learn that you're not alone. If you're how you behave at home, you have to behave differently when you are in a cinema. Because, you know, it doesn't. Some people don't have to pay for their ticket. When we have, you know, we're members we get our unlimited cards with Cineworld, but
we're still paying.
Pay for their night out. That's like £30.
Do you know my biggest bugbear? And I know people can't do it, and it just seems to get louder and louder and louder. Is the plastic bags when people are getting their popcorn. They go,
rusty popcorn.
It's like that. And I'm thinking, oh dear. And someone, I remember I sat like where I normally sat, and there's someone sat behind me, and it was right at the back of my head, like, and it was going. It's just like.
I had someone actually take a 6-pack of crisps in, and they proceeded to eat their way through the 6-pack of crisps all the way through the film.
Oh Lord. Dear. Oh Lord!
I was prepared to do violence.
That's unheard
of. Because I had this even recently. I went to see Frozen, and I mean, when I saw Frozen 2 last week, and I guess if you're going to see Frozen, you're kind of asking for it because there's kids in there and everything.
Yeah.
But there were some people behind me, and I think it was been a mum with a kid who was sick, and they kept putting on the flashlight on their phone throughout the whole film. So you're trying to watch the film, and then all of a sudden you just see these shadows come up on the ceiling, and you're like, what the heck's going on? I thought there was something wrong with the projector. I thought somebody was dancing in front of the projector or something. Then I was like, forget it. Then something else happened, and they were moving around and all that. And I remember I went to see a film. I went to see the Denzel Washington film Fences with.
Oh yeah.
I went to see there was a film with Fences at the cinema in Southampton with my wife Claudia and a friend of ours, Miriam. Hi Miriam. And we went to, and there were some people who came in front of us, and they just talked throughout the entire film. On their phone, it was kind of like, you were like, and I was like, okay, cool. I understand that it's not the most action-packed film or anything like that, but you must have known that before you got the ticket to come in here. So why on earth would you spend money on a ticket, come into this cinema, and it's the Showcase Cinema in Southampton. It's not a cheap cinema. And it's like, it's like, why would you spend money, come in there, and then talk through that? What's the point? Why? If you don't like the film, if you're not paying, leave. Why are you there? So, but okay, now, with all these cinema etiquette questions, the big question that comes up with all this, because I think I said in the stuff with Nina, I said that essentially this is one of the reasons why Netflix might win this Netflix cinema battle. Why do we still go to the cinema?
I personally think it is for that immersive experience.
Oh, yeah?
Because when it's a good film and it's a comfortable cinema, I mean, if it's uncomfortable, then it doesn't quite work. But if it's a comfortable cinema, the temperature's right, and it's a good film, you forget your surroundings completely, and it is a completely immersive experience. And you're not even aware of the passing of time. It is, you are there. And I think no matter how comfy you are at home and how good a thing is, when you're at home, it's a different vibe altogether.
Yeah.
I think because we never really turn the lights low, and we never really have that perfect surround sound, but there is still that experience of being at the cinema, of having a completely immersive experience that I think you can't replicate.
And I quite like, sometimes it doesn't happen so often now, but I really like it when I'm in the cinema on my own. I know that sounds really sad, doesn't it? But I mean, I just love it. I just love to sit in that cinema. Nothing else, just the film.
Once it was really good, and once it was really creepy. Yeah. But I've had that experience of being the only one in the cinema.
Yeah, I've done that before. I did that with a friend of mine, Alex. Oh, hi, Alex. And we went to see Coraline, and we were like, oh no, we were the only ones there for a while. It was a Sunday morning, but then like a family came in, but I think that they left. And I remember us walking and thinking we're going to watch a kids film, and then we watched it and we're like, oh my, how is this a kid's film?
It's terrifying, yeah.
Coraline is terrifying. Coraline is genuinely one of the scariest films I've seen in the last 10 years. Oh.
I'm your other mother, silly.
Oh, good Lord. It's terrifying. All right, so that's why we keep going. Take that, Radio 4. Take that, Radio 4 front row, who we find out this week, and we tweeted out about it, that Radio 4 pretty much had the title of our show in one of the things with Netflix v Cinema. Yeah. We're like, we're way ahead of you. We've been doing this for like 40-something episodes now. Oh, good on this. It's almost a year. We've been doing this almost a year, guys.
That's mad.
That is okay. Anyway, we need to move on. We're rambling.
We need to move on.
We're rambling all over the show. We need to
get on, don't we? Otherwise, we're going to be
we're going to be here.
We're
forever.
rambling.
We are going to be here forever. All right. So let's move on to the first film. And as I said, we're going to let we're going to let Superfan Nina tell us what this film is all about. And Nina, as one of our listeners, the first person to give us a review on iTunes, a 5-star review. Thank you very much. Take it away. Tell us about Knives Out. What is this all about?
That's a lot of pressure, Tosin. I don't know if I can live up to it, but I'll try. So basically, Knives Out is a classic whodunit movie.
Yeah.
So it starts off with there's a death, and the police come, and all the family members are there, and it's basically a pathway through each of the family members' stories. So you have your traditional kind of intro to the police, and then you have your intro into each of the members. And initially, it all starts out being absolutely lovely. Everyone is everyone's best friend. They've had a party, and they're all one happy family.
Yeah.
And then the police start to dig more into the actual background of the family. And as you go through, it generally reveals for each of the different members of the family what their relationship was to the person who died, who was actually the grandfather. And he was a rich person who gave them all money and, was basically supporting them all. And it kind of comes out step by step through the movie on how the death happened, how, what everybody was doing at that time.
Okay.
And it kind of pieces you through to make an assumption or to make, your own kind of
you come to your own conclusions of what you think actually happened.
Exactly. And basically it surmises in this kind of, as you would expect from any whodunit, everyone's in one room.
Yep.
Let's do the big reveal.
Any self-respecting whodunit. So, all right.
Exactly.
So obviously now that what you've just said sounds like, your average Mrs. Marple or Miss Marple. Is it Mrs. or Mrs. or Miss or Mrs. Marple? I think it's Mrs.
Well, is it?
Oh, no, Miss. Okay.
Miss, I think.
So far, it sounds like your average Miss Marple, Hercule Poirot, and whoever the other one was that was played by Hyacinth Bouquet. Hetty Waintrop. It sounds like your average. Or even Jessica Fletcher, Murder, She Wrote. It sounds. So what makes this better? So do you think that this is worthy of being up on a big screen as opposed to being on ITV on a Sunday afternoon?
I 100% think you need to see this on a big screen.
Okay.
It's got some big hitting stars in there. Each of the family members is somebody that you're going to recognise, from Chris Evans to Daniel Craig to Jamie Lee Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
So just the acting itself is very, very good. Each of the figures is played very, very well.
Yeah.
And I think seeing all the mannerisms of all the people on the big screen, you start to pick things out, like Daniel Craig carrying a cigar and the way that he holds the cigar and plays with the cigar. It focuses a lot on the cinematography of it. So it's staged in an old mansion. It's got big marble fireplaces where, they're in the dark. Like there are some scenes where they're all huddled together, kind of talking about what's happened, or where they were, or accusing somebody, or stuff like that. And it's basically they can do it in like a dark scene where the fire is roaring and it's got a big majestic sofa and there's like a chess board in the background where some people are sat by the chessboard and some people on the sofa and people are storming around and one person's fallen asleep, and all of those features in one scene kind of make the atmosphere in all of those, which build the tension.
Yeah.
And I think it really deserves to be seen on a big screen. In fact, I was having a conversation with Simon about this, and he said he was going to see it, wait till it comes out on DVD to watch it. And actually, having seen it once, I will not, to see it again, I won't wait till DVD. I'm going to go to cinema and watch it again, because they do things like, they do use the classic tricks that you would have in a very good and well-made film, where, somebody is on the phone, they zoom into their face, they're in the dark, in the shadows, and then they step forward and their eyes are in the light.
Oh, yes.
As you can see that kind of moment of
that's a like
tension.
Film noir moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's very much like that. It's a little bit, it's kind of a bit comedy, but it's also very serious. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Clue.
Yeah. Clue.
And they have that kind of comedy whodunit. It's not that kind of movie. It's the kind of movie where there are some really serious bits, but then there were also some very comical bits. And, one thing I would say about this movie is it was very well made, but there were some bits where you could see they were playing with the cinematography, and it did drag a little bit, just in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, it flowed very well. There was probably right slap bang in the middle when you're coming to your conclusions was quite kind of slow moving. And there was one point where I was like, "Come on, let's go, go. We need to move this along a little bit."
Yeah. All right. So so you were saying that and also you just mentioned Simon. That is Simon, who is our American West Coast listener. Well, he better be after this. We're giving him a mention. He'd better be listening to this. So
yeah.
So and you mentioned Will, your husband. So the both of you are quite. You said you love your whodunits and all that kind of stuff. So is this the kind of whodunit that you like because it's following all the beats of the whodunits and we know exactly what's going to happen? Oh, that was nice and comforting. Or was this kind of like, because they've tried to say I think one of the taglines of this film was like a whodunit, like no one's ever done it before. Did you think that there was anything new, or was this just kind of like, no, this is just the whodunit, this is what we want, don't mess with it?
No, I think it was. I think it. So halfway through, if you'd asked me the same question, I probably would have said to you, "Oh God, yeah, it's a classic whodunit. They just got the big stars in." But actually, the conclusion of the actual film, and I don't want to give anything away, but the conclusion of the end of the film made me realise, actually, no, they have thought this through. And all of the little things that you see throughout the movie, you kind of start to piece together, and you're like, oh wait, no, I remember that actually. Yeah, that's true. That did happen. And things that you think hadn't registered with the detective, you're like, why didn't he pick up that? Or stuff like that. Actually, the ending. So I would say the last half an hour, I was like, this is a brilliant movie. Like I said to you, the middle half an hour, I was like, oh God, where's this going? I think I know where it's going to go. It's very predictable, that kind of thing. So I'm going to say that it was a very good whodunit. Like it was still a classic. It had the classic formula, right? Somebody dies, big conclusion at the end.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff, or or it leads you to a conclusion or a build up or whatever. But I would say they did a good job.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, because it's funny, there's bits about, I'm trying not to say too much, because when I talk about this with Shaun and Sharon, I'm probably going to go too much, and I don't want people to hear the same thing twice. But I think it's funny how, because probably about a third to a halfway through the film, this film, it gets to the point where most whodunits end about a third of the way through, where you're like, well, what? So where are we going now? But I think the fact that it still has more to do, and it still has more to, because I think it's kind of like, I think the director Rian Johnson, he wrote and directed it. He also wrote and directed The Last Jedi, and with him, I think he knows, if you're going to do a whodunit, people are going to be expecting da-da-da-da-da. Ooh, the butler did it. That kind of thing. So he knows what whodunits are like, and he's playing with them, and he's still trying to figure out, okay, how do you make a whodunit in this day and age where people are so used to the whodunits and so used to what happens? How do you make something different? And I think as you said, they did a good job. Hello?
Yep. I can hear you, Tosin. What happened?
Okay, hear? Oh, I don't know. It just seemed to drop out for a second. What was the last thing you heard me say?
I heard you say that he did very well. He's tried to tailor it for today.
Yeah.
Where people I think I pretty much heard everything there.
Yeah. Cool. So with that, how many stars would you give it?
I'm gonna say a 4-star.
Yep.
Yeah, because probably a low 4-star. It's a high 3, low 4. So I'm going to say low 4 because they were really, the stars were quite good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, also Don Johnson. Michael Shannon. You had all these. It's Toni Collette. It does have like the big starry cast like they used to do. Like when they used to have a Peter Ustinov Hercule Poirot movie, they used to just pack it full of stars, and I think he's done the same thing here. So, what did you think of Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc?
I was just gonna say that I thought you were gonna move away from this topic, but one thing I was gonna jump in with is, so yes, I thought he was very good, but his accent was the worst accent I possibly could. I could not stand it. was no reason for him to be like a southern kind of American detective. If anything, he had a French accent. He could have been French, he could have been English, he could have just kept his normal accent. All I could concentrate on whenever he spoke was this terrible, terrible Texan accent.
It's not Texan.
Is it not? What was it?
I think it's supposed to be from New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. Whatever it was just really off-putting.
Especially because he has a French name. And so that would make me think that he's supposed to be around the New Orleans, and he's a little bit Cajun. And the Cajun accent, if you ever hear somebody speak with a proper Cajun accent, I mean, if the first time you hear it, you can get totally caught off guard and you're like, why are you speaking like that? Why? But then
maybe that's why.
Yeah.
That I didn't like it.
Yeah, it might be the case because but the funny thing is that because the last time I saw Daniel Craig do an American accent, it was in the film Logan Lucky. And in Logan Lucky, he does he's a southern hick, like a redneck, like proper redneck in that film. And I feel like with Daniel Craig, whenever he does an accent because obviously it's one of the things he's English. And whenever he does one of those accents, for the first 2 minutes or so, I'm kind of like, oh, that's weird. But after a while, I just sort of like, it just goes. It's not like, let's say, Benedict Cumberbatch, who when he does an American accent all the way through, you're like, dude, man, what are you doing? But with Daniel Craig, I actually find that it just melts away. I'm just kind of like, okay, cool, I get you. But if you can't, see Logan Lucky, good film.
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
But I disagree with you on his accent. I just couldn't stop thinking about it.
Okay.
But one thing I would say just generally about the casting was excellent, but there were certain characters in there who I was just like, if you weren't in this movie right now, they could have filled that hole with somebody else. Yeah, there were a couple. I don't want to say it because obviously everyone is a suspect, so I don't want to say it to ruin it for anybody. But there were certain, I'll text you after this, Tosin, to tell you who I think it were just absolutely pointless characters. Yeah, but there were a few of them where you're just like, why are you here?
There are some characters who you look at and you go, if you weren't here, if that character wasn't there, this movie would not be different.
No, somebody else would just say that line and it would be like, oh, or they would say, oh, my son or daughter or husband or wife, said this, and then they didn't actually have to picture them. Yeah, there were 3 characters that I think that didn't need to be in it.
Okay, and now we're back. So Superfan Nina has told us what the film was about, and she's told us what she thought about it. So let's just jump straight in. Sharon, what did you think of this?
I thought it was like watching an episode of Columbo, with a Columbo with an all-starry cast, and a Columbo played by Daniel Craig doing his Southern gent thing.
Yep.
But for me, I wouldn't have elevated it any higher than that. To me, it was like an okay film. It was a reasonable good whodunit. I mean, I hadn't quite worked out exactly how it was done at the end, but I had a reasonable idea that it wasn't quite as it seemed.
Yep.
I mean, I had my suspicions literally immediately. Then I thought, no, it can't be that simple. And then as the film progressed, I began thinking, actually, I think I might have been right. My very first instinct was to say, don't be hasty. But yes, I thought it was enjoyable. But for me, it was, and there's some good performances. Some of them, really obviously sort of took it to town and enjoyed their roles.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought some of them worked better than others. We both thought that Jamie Lee Curtis really.
Jamie Lee Curtis, yeah.
But I wasn't quite so convinced by Toni Collette, I have to say.
No, I agree. And even what's his name, the old Captain America? Chris Evans. I wasn't.
The only thing that put me off a little bit, I didn't understand why it needed to be quite so sort of sweary and sort of vulgar swearing as well. I wasn't so keen on that. And that didn't happen in Columbo. But something that's got.
That's because that's them telling you, they're speaking directly to you, Sharon. This isn't Columbo, man.
Yeah. This is, hey, we're edgy and modern. Well,
this isn't your mama's who's done it.
Because this is obviously the way the stylization of it, the feel of it makes it feel like it's a period drama when it's not. It's obviously modern day, but it's obviously nodding towards all of these detective, whodunits.
Yeah.
But and they suddenly sort of throw in this sort of slightly anachronistic. I didn't like the language. I was like, I don't think that's quite necessary. But I thought it was an okay film.
Okay, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah, for me, to me, this was all a bit hit and miss. I enjoyed some of the interaction with. Was really good, which was a highlight when certain scenes.
Yeah.
For me, this was all of scenes, but I mean, I'm not really a major whodunit fan. To be fair, you know, and I mean, and yeah, it was. I have to agree with Shaun. I think it was sort of okay, you know. As I say, it had moments, and there was some good interaction with some of the characters, not all of the characters. And it just didn't, you know. I mean, I didn't really have any idea who'd done it or whatever, anything like that. I wasn't that engaged with the film. I guess I just wasn't that engaged, which is why I thought the acting, I'd focus more on the interaction between the actors than the actual plot itself, you know, because the plot didn't really interest me. So yeah, so it was okay. It was okay.
All right. Cool.
How about yourself?
Well, I quite liked it. I quite liked it. I think that the word I totally understand what you're saying about it being like an episode of Columbo, because I think it's a whodunit. It's it's the way it's built. Only that it's an episode of Columbo. I guess because in Columbo, I guess you always know who's done it quite early on.
You do it quite
early on, yeah.
And it's always about Columbo chasing this one person down. But this is more.
There's just one more thing, Tosin.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Sorry. Yeah. Carry on.
Well done. Well played, that man. You always find out, but with this, I think you have this whole thing where it's about there's suspects everywhere, and they give everybody.
There's a little twist, isn't there? There's a twist every now and then, yeah.
And I like the fact because I think with the whodunit, or one of the things I was talking about with Nina is that with the whodunit, it's almost kind of straight down the middle. You know where it's going to go. You know what the format is. And I think they twisted it up a little bit because I without giving much away, because I'm trying very, very hard not to give much away with this film. Without giving much away, I said, and I still maintain that about, I think, half to a third of the way through the film, that it reaches the point where most whodunits end, where you kind of think, oh yeah, well that's it, wrapped up in a bow. We know who, yeah. But then it carries on, and then you're like, okay, why is the film still going? Unless I'm mistaken, we still have like an hour left. Okay, what's going to happen here? And I feel like there's some bits where it does dip a little. But I feel like it sort of pulls it up quite well. I really, really like the performances. I really like I think, Shaun, you were saying the interaction between the characters. I think Don Johnson. I don't know why, but whenever I see Don Johnson on screen now, I'm just kind of like, oh, this is gonna be a good time. Because Don Johnson, he just plays. He's just doing really, really well at playing like the smarmy idiot, quite frankly. He just because there's a little bit, I think almost every film nowadays, there's a little bit of like, you know, the political thing in there, because they talk about because you have the character played by Ana de Armas, your friend, Shaun.
Yeah.
You recognize her this time?
Yes.
So Ana de Armas, and because they have this whole thing where none of the characters in this sort of like casual sort of like thrown around racism, where I'm pretty sure they don't even realize that they're doing it. They can't remember where she comes from. Like when they go, yeah, her family's from Paraguay. It's like, oh yeah, she's from Nicaragua. Oh no, they're Uruguay, and you're just kind of like, ugh. And for me, that's like one of my sort of like triggers. I'm like, but it's just sort of like put it, and I just think that it's really, really well done. There were bits of it where the family in this reminded me of the family in Ready or Not.
Yeah.
Without the hunting down somebody doing a murderous game of hide and seek thing, but I thought it was really, really good. What did you guys think of Daniel Craig's accent?
Awful.
I didn't believe that it was his accent.
No.
Because normally when the speech patterns and the way people talk, you think, okay. But him, I never found it was anything less than an affectation. So, yeah, it didn't entirely convince.
Oh, the funny thing is, like, because in the Nina interview, Nina talks about the fact she was like, it was terrible, didn't like it all the way through. Oh, no, it was just distracting. On the other hand, I feel like whenever Daniel Craig does an accent, after a while, I just forget that there's an accent being put on. The same thing happened when he did the accent in Logan Lucky. But
yeah.
Broad,
I quite enjoyed Logan Lucky. I seem to remember.
Yeah, Logan Lucky's a good film. All right, cool. So with that, let's get on to, because I think we've said all we can say about this film without spoiling things.
Yes.
Yeah. Apart from, there's one thing that Nina said about useless characters, that there's some characters that if they were not in the film wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah, what a lot of Michael Shannon's wife. Did she actually do anything?
Yeah.
This is the second time in 2 weeks I've forgotten she was in the film. When you said Michael Shannon's wife, I'm like, what? Oh my god, yeah. Oh my god, he had a wife.
She even got a character name. Yeah, what's her name even? It's gone.
Yeah, but there's a couple of characters in the film where if they weren't there, it wouldn't make a difference. So how many stars would you give it?
I'd give it 3.
I'll give it 3.
Mm-hmm. I'd pretty much written that down before you guys said anything. But it's like, yeah, I gave it a 4, as did Nina. So, but Nina said it was like a low 4. But she said that she really, really enjoyed it, but she did have some issues with it that were all around that. And I think I like the things like the whole idea of how one of the characters cannot tell a lie, because every time she lies, she sort of throws up. I was like, that's just really, really good. All right, cool. So cinema kicks us off with a 3.5 this week. And now we go on to the first of 2 films this week, which blur. We seem to have one every single week that is just blurring the lines between what is cinema and what is Netflix, and making us mega confused. And this is The Irishman. And I think The Irishman has to be Netflix, because Netflix gave them money to make this film. This film would not have been made without Netflix money, even though it was in cinemas for a while. So it was in cinemas for a very short while, so it can still qualify for awards and all that kind of stuff. But then most of the people in this world are going to see it on Netflix, and making Martin Scorsese cry. As I think I saw a headline this week where it's like, Martin Scorsese says, "Please don't watch The Irishman on a phone." And we were talking about last week when, Shaun, you had been watching The Irishman, but you were like, pause that, I'm going to get back to it later, finish watching it off.
Yeah, I know. I know, yeah, that's what I mean. There's a lot of complaint. Oh, you should, how could you? Well, I think you even said to me yourself, you said, how could you do that to a Scorsese film? Not that you minded, but you were saying there'd be a lot of people.
There'll be a lot of people who would say that, yes.
Yeah.
But it's 3.5 hours long. I mean, do they expect you to sit through that in one go?
Well, yeah. It could have been... could have been like Peaky Blinders, couldn't it? Could have been like 5 episodes or whatever.
Well, it could have. Now, this could very easily be a TV series. It could easily be a TV series. And I feel like, even though it's 3.5 hours long, there's some reasons I will get into that. I feel like there's some stuff that has been cut out of the film, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like he had more stuff to put in, and this is him being disciplined and cutting things down. Because because
it's a possibility.
Yeah, well, I think so, because you have things like there's characters played by really, really well-known actors that literally do not say anything throughout the entire runtime of the film. I mean, and I'm thinking like, they had lines, and they just had to lose it because the film was too long already. But then, if this film was in cinema, now this is one of those. If this film had been released in cinemas, I don't think I would have watched it yet, because even though it was on a TV, I could have watched it at home. I was like, where am I going to find 4 hours to carve out of my day to sit down and just watch a film because I really wanted to watch it from beginning to end and not have to sort of like cut off. But I had a busy week, and I was like, what? So I had to pause it a couple of times. I think I watched the last 2.5 hours in one go, but before that there were a couple of breaks and pauses because I had to go take a phone call, and I had to go do something for work, and I had to go live my life and talk to my wife and all that kind of stuff. So first of all, okay, so long film, that's the whole thing. But now, Shaun, this is Martin Scorsese playing in New York again, playing back in his sort of like gangster milieu, which is what made his name in the 80s, about his Mean Streets, Goodfellas, all this sort of films. And so it's essentially the story of this guy, Frank Sheeran, who is the Irishman of the title because he's of Irish origin, but he gets taken in by Italian gangsters in New York. And pretty much, I think, basically, the basic premise of the film is that it's a walk through American history, but through the eyes of the Italian mob in New York. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, probably. I probably would agree with that to some extent. Yeah, I think it focused quite a lot on Hoffa, didn't it? Not Hoffa.
Jimmy Hoffa.
Jimmy Hoffa, yeah. Jimmy Hoffa. Al Pacino shows up playing at Jimmy Hoffa.
And Al Pacino's class. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
he is. Anyway, there was a lot of time spent, wasn't there, with Hoffa. So for me, this was more about, and there was a bit of the politics at the time. They talked about, Kennedy and the Cuban crisis and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so I agree. It was like a history, but I think it was more focused on, for me, I was thinking from the times I watched that it was more focused on Hoffa than, because that seemed to be the majority of the film, I thought.
Well, his relationship with Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah, to me that seemed like the crux of the film.
Well, yeah.
I didn't think Go on.
No, you carry on. You're saying you didn't think?
I don't think there was anything new in this film. There wasn't anything like, it wasn't like, whoa, that'd be different. I mean, there was a, Scorsese did a film called was it called The Silence?
Called Silence, just called Silence.
Yeah, Silence. Yeah, because that was a different film. Yeah, Silence. And I really enjoyed that. That was a really long film, and that was really different to what had come in the past, because I always have this. It's really, really funny. I had a discussion today with someone. We were talking about Scorsese films, and actually, it was John. It was Happy John. Hello, Happy John. And he agreed with me that I think Goodfellas is overrated.
Oh yeah.
I think it's an overrated film. I don't, it's okay, but I don't think everybody loves it. Oh, Goodfellas. For me, it's not that great a film. I mean, I preferred Casino. That's not that great a film, but I preferred Casino over Goodfellas.
Yeah.
But then we got onto Ray Liotta, but that's a whole different ball game, so we won't even go there. We'll go back to The Irishman, and there wasn't really anything new in it. The acting was what I expected. It was, it was first class. But I don't think there was any wow moments in it.
Yeah, you see now you're hitting the nail right on the head there, Shaun. I think, because I feel like this film was exactly what I expected it to be. It was exactly what I expected it to be, with no real surprise. It was just it's very well told, and you know how you can have an old story, but it's you can have somebody who absolutely murders an old story because they can't tell it properly. And but I think it's just a very, very well told story. So when they're going through the history of it, and when they're talking about the Teamsters and Jimmy Hoffa's place in America, and how he was the second most popular man in America at that time, and how that linked into the politics, and how that linked into the mob and all. And I feel like it was quite that bit was quite. I was like, okay, this is actually, it's being very well told, but this is exactly the film I expected it to be. And I think and I think it is. It's a testament to the film that a big thing about the film was talking about the de-aging of the characters. De Niro plays a character that's 30 years younger than himself. And quite frankly, for most of the time, I did not notice.
No, I didn't. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, I thought it was really...
the transformations.
It was really, really well done. It's really, really well done, and really, really subtly done as well. Where you're like, I'm not... it's have they actually de-aged him? And it made me think, hang on, what does Robert De Niro look like today? I am not sure. I'm not sure which one of these ages is Robert De Niro today. So I think that bit was quite good, and that bit is like a triumph. But I think the difference I can find, and I think the reason why these guys made this film, is because Martin Scorsese defined the gangster movie, the Italian gangster movie in the 80s. It's pretty much, when you think of Italian gangster movies, you think of Martin Scorsese. Maybe The Godfather, but I think more to the... I think Martin Scorsese. And when he made Goodfellas, when he made Casino, when he made all these films with the same cast pretty much, with Joe Pesci, with Harvey Keitel, with Robert De Niro, these were young people who were kind of they were sort of young bucks, and they were going up, and it was a young person's film made. But now that they've grown older and they've lived through life, it's as if that they're now saying, okay, now we want to tell the gangster's perspective from that point of view, from I've grown older, I've lived through life, and what has all of that meant? So almost in a way, I feel like this film is Scorsese, De Niro, all that kind of stuff themselves, almost like therapy for them, we've lived through life. Yeah. What has all what we've done meant? Because the characters in the film, the kind of characters, if you look at Frank Sheeran, he could be Jimmy Conway in Goodfellas, just older. And okay. and looking back over his life and going, oh yeah, that time when we made that Goodfellas film, what was that about? Or that time, because Goodfellas sort of ends in a way where most people are still alive, they're still in that life, all that kind of stuff. And The Irishman is framed by people being at the end of their lives, looking back and almost sort of going, was it worth it? What did I use my life up for, and all that kind of stuff. And so that bit I thought was the only bit that was possibly a bit new, but you have to get to the final hour of the film before you actually sort of start digging into that and start seeing what effect it's had. So with that, I thought it was good. I didn't think, I know people are saying, oh, best film of the year and stuff, but I agree with you, Shaun. I feel like it was exactly what I expected. It was just a very, very well told story of what I expected. Hit all the beats and hit all the moments that I thought. I think there was some stuff with Jimmy Hoffa that I didn't know, and there's some stuff with Jimmy Hoffa that people will not like. But besides that, I thought, good film, well told. I would give it a 4.
Yeah. I'd probably have to agree. I mean, because I mean, they are. It must have been like a big party for them, I reckon. They said, right, okay, we've been in all your films, so as well as making the film, they probably had quite a good time reminiscing and chatting about stuff. Yeah. And I'm sure they did, Harvey, and because he was a little bit, wasn't he, Harvey Keitel as well? So, but he didn't have a major part. He was like a bit of a bit player, really.
Yeah, he's one of the characters I'm talking about, because when I say I think he had more stuff that they filmed that they just didn't use in the film, because Harvey Keitel shows up, and I think you get Harvey Keitel in your film and you give him, he maybe has 5 lines in the entire film. There's a bit where he disappears for like an hour, shows up again, and I'm like, oh my god, he's still alive. But I think the biggest one is because this is such a man's story told from a man's perspective, and the next one we'll talk about something else, like pretty much the opposite. And so it's just so in there that you have someone like Anna Paquin, great actress, multi-award winning actress and all that. She's in the film and she literally says 2 lines, and the 2 lines are, have you called her, and why? That's literally all she says in the entire film. And I was sitting here going, why the heck did you get this? Okay, sure enough, she conveys a lot with looks, because you see her looking, she plays his grown-up daughter, and you see her looking at him and looking at this, and like you read very quickly that there's stuff going on in her head, and she's sussing things out. But I'm like, what? Why get Anna Paquin in your film and give her 2 lines?
She doesn't say anything. Yeah.
Like, give her 2 lines, and why get Harvey Keitel and give him nothing? And Bobby Cannavale shows up, and he's just kind of like but I think it's just so heavily focused. It is the De Niro show, and I think he plays he does play a character different from anyone I've seen him play before, where his character of Frank is not particularly. He's not in charge most of the time. He's just kind of like a dog's body. He just kind of like goes from one place. They say go do this, he goes and does it. They go do that, he goes and does it. And I think in a lot of his scenes with Joe Pesci, it's really, really interesting seeing the sort of power play between the two of them. But I think that there's a longer film, and I do think that they should probably make it into a TV series.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's me. So Shaun, you last words on The Irishman.
Last words on The Irishman. Yeah, as I say, I agree with your point that there could be more now. I mean, I hadn't really thought about it that deeply. It wasn't like a wow moment, but maybe that's what Netflix are going to do. Maybe they're going to bring out, wait a little while and then say, a director's cut of director's
the 6 hour version.
Yeah, and they serialise it, so. Which I would probably watch it again, even if it was as a serial.
Yeah,
so, they do. I did. It's funny you were going about De Niro. I really like Pacino in this film.
Yeah,
he was my favourite. Pacino was my favourite. Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah,
crass,
I think the Jimmy Hoffa character fits Pacino at this point in time, because that is possibly the most showy role.
Yeah.
In the film. I think the De Niro role is, he's just, as I said, he's kind of like history's observer, so to say. All these things were happening, and he didn't really affect them in any way. He just walked around and did what all the players told him to do. And,
that's right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but Pacino was doing stuff, and I think I really, really like Joe Pesci, because obviously he's in all the Martin Scorsese movies before, he's always been like the hothead. And I love the fact that this is just a total inversion of that. But anyway, we spoke about this for too long.
Too long, yeah.
We had 4 stars for The Irishman, and now we need to move on. So, the timer went off, but it didn't make any sound. Anyway, now we get onto Charlie's Angels, which we have seen which Shaun and I have seen in the cinema.
Yes.
So, Shaun, quickly tell us, Charlie's Angels. I mean, like, if anybody doesn't know, what is this about?
Right, Charlie's Angels obviously was it 80s TV
70s.
program, 70s TV program.
Yeah.
Has been made there was a couple of films made 90s, 2000. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've
90s.
never seen the other films.
90s, early
I've never
90s.
seen the other films because
Drew Barrymore and
everybody said.
Cameron
I think
Diaz.
I'd seen clips and stuff, and I mean, I never really even got the TV series, so you know, I remember the Bosley bit. Okay, Angel. I can't do that voice, but you know what I mean. The iconic Bosley voice.
Yeah.
But well, this show basically, Bosley is like a name for lots of different characters.
It's like a rank.
Called Bosley. It's like a rank. Yeah, it's like a rank. It's like a lieutenant or lieutenant, as they say in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, the story is pretty much they're like agents. You've got these girl agents, and then there's also this massive company that's created a thing that harnesses electric but can be weaponized. So they have to try and do it. And there is a girl in the company that like knows it's weaponized, and they tried to. The company tried to get rid of her. Yeah,
she pretty much created it.
She pretty much created it, and so they're trying to get rid of her so that because she's making these waves, and obviously it comes within the remit of Bosley and the Angels. So yeah. Now this, I've got to say, Tosin, that's basically the story, and there's the rest goes on.
I'll ask you a tiny
Ask what you want. Yeah.
Is this like a standalone film? Do any of the is it like the Angels have been around for a long time and they've just got different agents?
Okay,
or is this just
I really enjoyed
none
that
of the
bit.
previous Angels exist?
Yeah,
they do have nods. That was a really good part of the film. That's a really bit that I enjoyed. They have nods.
Because
they do have nods.
The film kicks off at the beginning. One of the Bosleys is played by Patrick Stewart, and the way they said is that he's the original Bosley, and they have this montage that says that he's been there from the very beginning. So he's been so they have these pictures of him in the 70s with the 70s Charlie's Angels, and then with him in the 90s with the 90s Charlie's Angels, all the way up to the present with it. So the whole idea is that this thing started off in America, but it's grown and grown and grown, and like the Townsend agency, because it's Charlie Townsend, and his agents are called Angels, has now grown and it's now all over the world. So they do acknowledge that all these other things do exist, and but now we've gone international.
Always have existed. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense then. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Shaun,
it's not...
I was just curious about that.
Yeah. So you're about to say something. You're about to launch into something, I think.
I was going to launch into it. Do you know what? I was thinking I'm really, really not going to like this movie. But it's not going to be the sort of thing. Yeah. Back to John, the Happy. He goes, I'm not bothering to see that movie. It'll be rubbish. He said, I've seen it from the Happy John.
Happy John.
Yeah.
So he wasn't going to go. He didn't want to come see it. But I really, really enjoyed this film. I cannot, and I was saying to him, he said to me today, I saw him today, and he goes, "You cannot be serious. How could you enjoy that?" I said, "I just really, really enjoyed this movie. I thought
I did too.
A really good fun movie."
Yeah.
And there wasn't, to me, right in this.
Not just a hot babes running around with little on type way.
No. They were.
Is it that not? It's not that sort of Charlie's Angels anymore.
No,
it's not that sort of Charlie's Angels. Yeah.
Sure. When you finish, I will get onto that. I mean, and I would address what you're just talking about, Sharon.
Address that bit. Yeah. I know exactly what you're going to say, which is why we wanted Sharon to see this. Really.
Yes.
But anyway, maybe you might after. So anyway, back to that. It's just. I mean, the action sequences are not too silly either. You know, my pet hates. Yeah. My pet hates, and because I was expecting super major CGI, like things crashing, and a bit. I was thinking it was going to be a bit like Mission Impossible, which I hated. With helicopters falling down, all this. But no, a lot of, for me, and there wasn't really anything that I thought was really, really stupidly ridiculous. The action sequences are fine. Maybe they took a few too many knocks, and there were some really great surprising moments in it. And because I've got to be honest, Toes. I thought. I mean, at the beginning, I don't know if you sort of was thinking, we know he's going to be bad. We know, you can just tell, and it's played that way, isn't it?
Essentially,
and I was convinced. I tell you. I was convinced. I thought, I know what's going to happen there. I can tell straight away. I know who the bad one is. I can.
Yeah.
They seriously had me hoodwinked. They seriously had me hoodwinked. So it's great. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I think they do this thing where, because there's a lot of tropes, and it's when we talk about, you know, how in The Irishman they cast really, really good people and then give them nothing to do. They do a little bit of that in this film where they surround, but I think it's done by design, where they surround the cast and they surround the central angels with all these different people, and there's all these tropes that you have that show up in all these spy movies and spy TV shows. You have the person who is retiring, and what's going to happen there? You have the person, and so they give you all these options of, this could be the person who you think is dead, but oh no, they're coming back, and they cast them with really, really well-known people. So. And I felt like there was a bit where I kept switching, going, okay, that's obviously what they're doing here. Hang on, no, wait, no, that's obviously what they're doing here. Hang on, wait, no, that's obviously what they're doing there. And sure enough, at the end of the day, it ends up being one of those things. But I think they've given you so many that you end up. They give you so many that obviously one of them is going to have to be right. But it's but so I agree with you. I thought that they did well with that. I mean, the option that they went for in the end, I was a bit disappointed with, as to what was going on and the bad guy and everything like that. The option they went for, I was a bit disappointed with, but I was quite good.
Yes.
And now getting on to Sharon, about your question about, is it just angels walking around in skimpy clothes doing stuff?
Yeah, is it just hot babes?
Okay, now this film I think is, and I listened to Mark Kermode talking about this, and he spoke about how subversive this film is, and I agree with him massively. The first scene of this film is Kristen Stewart's face. And it's Kristen Stewart's face saying, and she's speaking directly to the camera. And the first thing you hear in this film is, well, I believe women can do anything. And that is pretty much like the manifesto for this film. That they've made what looks on the surface like a big bubblegum action movie. And it's like, a popcorn action movie that just happens to have women in it. But from the first scene, they make it plain that no matter who they're going to be fighting, whether it's going to be Blofeld or whether it's going to be blah, 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 that is the bad guy. But the real bad guy in this film is the patriarchy. And
yes,
the real bad guy in this film is like, it's perceptions of what women can and cannot do. It's like, the lack of representation that they've had, the lack of them being at the front and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not even a subtext. It is right in your face that
definitely
that this film is being made, because it's like, we've had all these films for so long where all the men are front and center and they're doing all this kind of stuff, and now we're going to make a film that has women at the front and center of it and has women issues on it, and it's like, and I feel like
they do seem quite. Yeah, the men seem quite weak in it. Really,
the men are non-existent in this film.
Non-existent.
They're either evil megalomaniacs who want to take over the world, or they're non-existent.
and I mean, I really liked the bit as well. I know it might have been a bit dark, but it was like when they had the big party. The big party.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that bit. I thought that was.
I know the bit you're talking about. And the thing is, and this is the thing, but as I said, I don't think I have ever felt so conscious of the fact that I'm a man when it comes to reviewing a film, which is why I have been desperately trying to find a woman who's watched this film. So far, none of the women that I know has watched the film. They're going to watch the film because I'm begging them to watch them, like you, Sharon. And Holly hasn't watched it, and Nina hasn't watched it. And I'm like, please, because there's some things I think, but I really, really...
I think for women of our... I'm not that I'm the same age as Holly or Nina, but I think I'm a little bit older than both of them. But I think women of our age, and I'm talking about anyone sort of over 30, really, has an instant picture in their head when you say Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And you tend to think, that's not for me.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe we're like more like Happy John than we realised.
Yeah.
I know there's an element of like prejudging there, which is maybe wrong. But you cannot, if they're going to take a brand name like Charlie's Angels, then you're going to take some of the associations that go with it.
Of course, I understand.
And so you're going to have those. It's going to put people off.
Well, you see, and
as well as attract.
And this is the thing that because this film has not done that well in America. It's essentially been labeled a flop, because if you don't do well in America, all of a sudden you're a flop. And and I feel like they needed to have made more of the fact that this is like a revisionist take. It's like, essentially, this whole film is like, it's women taking back Charlie's Angels. That's what this whole film is about. And as I said, it's as plain as the nose in your face. There's some bits where I think it goes a bit over the top with its message, because I feel like it gets to a point where you're like, so, okay, I get what you're saying, and I agree. Women have been underrepresented. Women can do anything. Women can be kick-ass, all this sort of things. I agree with you. But there's some bits where I feel like it just goes a bit overboard. And so I think from a filmmaking perspective, from a story perspective, I feel like the final third of the film, like when they get to this big party that Shaun was talking about, I think that's where because so far the film has done very much to make sense. It's done very much to be like, authentic. Like I remember when we watched Gemini Man, Shaun, you were talking about the fact that they went to where was it? It wasn't Istanbul as well, wasn't it? But they go to some country and it's like, I just happen to know somebody here. But they have a very similar thing. They have a very similar thing in Charlie's Angels, but the way they do it, they make it make sense, and it's actually kind of like a real life thing.
Exactly. I know what you're talking about.
And it's the fact that the woman the contact is a woman, and the contact who they meet, they try to get information from her, but the only way she'll do it is if they give her like things like tampons and women's health things to help women on the street. So I mean, everything about this film is just geared towards the fact that says we're women, hear us roar. It's very much done. But the thing is, and I applaud that. But the thing is, I think like how by the time it gets to the end of the film, how we talked about that scene in Endgame where it felt like such a token thing when they went, look at all the women we have.
That's it. Yeah. She's not alone.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the end of this film ends up being a bit like that because
it does. I have to agree.
It ends up being a bit like, and this is what.
Sisters.
But
theory is that in a Go on, sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, and Shaun, this is why I was saying I really, really want to talk about this with a woman. I really want to talk about this because it's like, and I feel like it's kind of it almost sort of says, okay, we've been oppressed for so long and we've been put down for so long, but now what we're going to do is that we're going to take over and we're going to put you in the place that we have been all this time. And I'm like, whoa, wait. Hang on a second. It's kind of like an Endgame. I thought that the bits that worked best were when they showed the men and the women fighting side by side. And then having to do this bit where they said, all the women, where are all the men? Ignore all the men, all the women. I was like, oh, hang on, wait. No, I thought it was about equality and not about you being as bad as doing what you've done. So towards the end of the film, it's kind of like, I'm actually, my mind is like, so in this world that you're building, because obviously the bad guy in this film is the patriarchy and you're fighting against like the perception of women and everything like that, and the way the film ends, it did leave me with a question that went, so in this new world of yours where women can do anything, is there any place for men?
Wow, that's it.
Yeah.
And I was like, is there any place for men, or are you just going to, is your thinking eradicate that? And so for a film that, on the surface of it looks like a popcorn blockbuster, I feel like Elizabeth Banks, who wrote it and directed it and stars in it as one of the Bosleys, I feel like she's put so much in there, and I could talk about this film for hours because there is a subtext that is right in front of you as to what on earth is going on here. It's like, what is actually you're thinking about gender equality? How do you think it should go? So yeah, please, Shaun, please watch this film. And I have questions to answer.
On that sort of the gender politics side of it, because again, I think it's cultural as well. I think women's experiences are different in different cultures, and I think the same as in America as in Britain. I think we've seen women prime ministers. We've had a female monarch for nearly most of it. Well, all of us, it's the whole of our lives. We've had a female monarch. And we've seen women do different roles that previously women have never thought they were possible. So I've never, ever thought that, I wasn't able to achieve anything I wanted. But I don't know if that's because I'm not a woman raised in America where they've never had a woman president. But when there was a woman president nominated, people were talking about her clothes and her hair, not about her policies. Yeah. So I don't know whether that's a cultural thing that will make a difference in how I see this film. Yeah. But I'm prepared to take one for the team And
might surprise you, Sharon. Might surprise you.
Yeah, no, but as I said, I really really like this film, which is and
I did too.
So I put up on Facebook, essentially putting something saying it was pretty much an appeal saying, is there any woman I know who has watched this film? And what I got was people complaining about the film and how they thought it was rubbish. Weirdly enough, they were all men, but I think that's because none of the women I know have watched this film, which I think is. No. I feel like this is part of, there is some weird kind of perception thing going on. It's a bit like how people said, like, when Barack Obama went for president, like a lot of the black people went, he's black, we never had this before, we're gonna go do this. But when Hillary Clinton went for president, a lot of women did not think, oh, she's a woman, we never had a woman. They just thought, well, we don't like her. And there's some weird thing going on with this, because I'm thinking if this film was a hit, for instance, then you would get it could be a gateway to more kind of women's stories being told. But anyway, so I put that on there, but they've just been talking about how they don't like it. But Shaun, I agree with you. I actually really, really enjoyed it. It was just bits towards the end that made me start thinking, hang on, wait, what are you saying?
It'd be interesting to see, and maybe do a comparison to other these, because I know there's been a feminization of the films over a number of years. They did the Ghostbusters films, and they did Ocean's 8, and over here we've got Doctor Who is now a woman. So I think there's been this sort of refeminization of certain things. And to be honest with you, I'm a bit about it, because I don't think it's necessary. No. I think you just need to write stronger roles for women. You don't need to take a male role or make it a female role, or take traditionally male parts and give them to women. I think just write better parts for women.
Well, yeah. And, you hear that, Martin Scorsese? And not try to rewrite what's been.
I think just write better roles. Don't try to take something that there and then try to change it, because everyone's going to go, why do that? Just write a decent role.
Yeah, I feel the same way about people talking about having a black James Bond. But please. Yeah,
write a decent character.
But
and then cast it for the best person, regardless of ethnicity or gender.
Yeah. The difference with this and there's so much to talk about on this. There's so but we need to move on.
We'll have to save it though.
Well, okay, we'll have to save it. Save it. Sharon, please go watch this film. Let's talk about it again next week. But I would give it a 4.
I'd give it a 4 too, Tosin. This was a big surprise for me, and I would watch this again.
I would totally watch it again. I mean, I can show you some of the things.
It was a good fun experience,
I thought it was actually one of the best type of films of that type, like a popcorn spy movie that I've seen in a long time. I really enjoyed it. All right, cool. And now we go back to Netflix and Friends. We're going to BBC iPlayer. Sharon, The Capture. Tell us what this is about.
Yes, The Capture is a 6-part television drama, BBC drama. I've only just managed to catch up on. It was broadcast earlier in the year. It is basically about a British soldier has been tried of a war crime in Afghanistan, of shooting an unarmed Taliban who was begging for mercy. And it's not a spoiler, because this is basically the very beginning of the film. He is acquitted of that crime by, they saying there's a fault in the video recording, his body-worn video. They're saying there was a fault with it, there's a time delay. The words he said, if you move them like 5 seconds, then they have a completely different meaning. And they say, oh yeah, actually that's, so they've got an expert to say, oh yeah, the video is faulty, there's a time lag, and so actually that picture doesn't match those words. So he was exonerated. And then later that evening, after his party at the pub, there's a CCTV operator is watching out of the pub window, looking at monitoring all the CCTV, and she spots this soldier there because there's something about him, and he's talking to a woman. And then as the story unfolds in this first episode, you then see this man, you then see him assault this woman, drag her off in an apparent kidnapping.
Right.
You then switch perspectives and you see the perspective of this soldier, and his recollection of the evening is quite different. Is that he went to the pub to celebrate with his solicitor. He walked her outside to her bus stop. They had a chat. They had a little bit of a smooch, and then she said, "Oh, I'll see you later." And she gets on the bus and drives off, and then he goes somewhere else. So his recollection of the events is that, he waved her goodbye and she carried on. And then, but the CCTV of the events shows that this woman has been kidnapped. And there's a potential crime going on. And then into this situation, you have a young up-and-coming police officer played by Holiday Granger, and who plays, I'm just trying to think what her colour.
Jane, policewoman.
Yes, that's it. Rachel Carey is her, DI Rachel Carey. So she's like the senior investigating officer of this inquiry, and so she's trying to unravel what's exactly happened. And what starts off as like you think is going to be a quite straightforward, or they're going to try to see if they can, find the evidence to prove that this crime has been committed. It then takes a sudden turn, and it becomes more about evidence.
Yep.
Can we believe what we see? How is it possible to deceive people by maybe making people believe that what they're seeing is not actually what they're seeing? And it looks into basically how, and it sort of takes the turn into the world of sort of counter-terrorism, and it sort of explores different ideas. And the capture then takes on various different meanings. The capture can be referred to the arrest. The capture can also refer to capturing an image.
Screenshot, yeah.
And it can also refer to a sort of a denouement after a sort of a bit of a mystery. So you have these different layers. So what you think is going to start off as quite a straightforward crime, thriller with a little bit of twist because it involves a British soldier, takes on a much more complicated and interesting turn.
Cool.
And so there's some really interesting cameos pop up in this. So we've got Holiday Granger as the DI who investigate it. The soldier is played by Callum Turner. He does this job very well. Ben Miles is in it.
Yep.
Ron Perlman pops up. So we know that there's an American line. I'm not going to tell you any more about that.
Ron Perlman, my
Famke Janssen appears in it as well.
Ben Miles,
Ben Miles is in it. Famke Janssen appears as another American role. And there's some really interesting. Leah Williams, we used to see her a lot in the sort of 90s, but she's sort of back with a vengeance. I've seen her in a few things lately.
Right. Okay.
So it's a really interesting cast, and I thought they did it very well. But each episode almost sort of ends with you in a different place.
Oh yeah.
When you think you know what's going on, and then it's suddenly every now and then you go, "Well, hang on, I did not see that coming." And as someone like all of us, in this virtual room, we get used to how films are made. You get used to how they sort of lay the breadcrumbs of a story, and it's not often that something does have managed to surprise. And a few times in this, it did surprise me because I was sat there thinking, well, how do they do that then? And then when they reveal it, you're thinking, okay, that's quite clever.
All right.
So I thought it was a well-made, interesting, thought-provoking drama. And that does have an element of the moral in there as well. So I quite like that, that there are some grey areas. It's all just black and white, and there's guilty, not guilty, or there's the truth or lies.
Yeah. And
you see the blurring between all these distinctions, and I thought that was an interesting turn for
Intriguing.
A modern piece of television drama.
There's so much stuff out there. There's so much stuff out there. Oh my God.
This was one that I had been meaning to watch. And when as months go by, or over a couple of months go by, and you think, shall I even bother?
Wow.
Because I downloaded the whole series thinking, I download it all, so I've got it all. And you see the clock ticking saying, this is going to be deleted from your... And I was thinking, I've got to watch it. And I started watching the first one. I was thinking, I know where this is going. And shall I even... And then by the end of the first episode, I was thinking, actually, I think I might persevere with this one. Because a number of times I've downloaded a whole series, watched the first maybe one or two, and then thought, I don't really care what happens now. And I've deleted them, and then I've just read the synopsis on IMDb to find out what's happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's good enough. I can visualize the rest. I don't need to actually see it.
Yeah. Okay,
but this did not make me do that.
Oh, okay, cool. Because it seems like the BBC are doing quite a lot of things like this, especially when it's like led by one woman, one man. You have Bodyguard, all that kind of stuff, and all that. So it's pretty good. Because
they're bringing out that BritBox, aren't they? So
yes, they probably want to fill it with good stuff. Yeah, they want to fill it with good stuff.
But
I'm sure.
The American influence makes me think that this is another BBC HBO cross-platform thing, blah 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 blah, which seems to be happening. like his Dark Materials, which is going on at the moment. But anyway, so how many stars would you give us?
I'd give this a 4.
Ooh, 4. I don't know why I'm surprised. Yeah, everything you were saying was pointing towards a 4, but so I have absolutely no idea why I'm surprised. All right, cool. Anything else you want to say on that before we rush on?
No, it's made in collaboration with NBC Universal.
Okay. All right.
So it was an American collaboration.
Yeah.
So it will be appearing on a platform near you soon, I imagine.
Not bad. Right, and now we go back to cinema, and it is Them That Follow. Shaun, you are the one.
This came to the Isle of Wight, but it came and went very quickly.
Yeah, it came and went very quickly. It was on at a really odd time. Okay, and talking about snakes and spiders and creepy things that bite, yes, we talk on this. Okay, so Them That Follow. This is a story about. Obviously, it's in the Appalachian Mountains, and it's like religious people, and there are actually religious people that use snakes.
They do this. I know this happens.
So I've seen this, yeah. So this is basically a community, and you've got water.
It's all based on a passage in Genesis, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
What the snakes or the
snakes? So you'll have dominion over these different things. So they take a passage of scripture and then they make a bit of a song and dance back.
Right. Okay.
Well, there's also the story in the Bible where Paul has a snake around his arm and he gets bitten, but nothing happens to him, and because he isn't bitten, people go, "Oh my God, he must be sent from God." And so I think that there's people who think, oh, if we get bitten by snakes and we die, we're not from God. So, from what I understand, this film is a bit about this.
It is a bit about this. In fact, there's quite a lot about this. So basically, you've got this, and the story, I guess, focuses on a girl, and she's engaged to one of the devout, one of the devout lads, but she likes this other lad who's not particularly. He's like, he doesn't, he's not into the religion. He likes her, and she likes him, but he's not into the religion. And but obviously he decides because he wants her, because of certain things that happen, like she becomes pregnant, but by the other one, and she don't want to, which I think the acting is really, really good. But it's not the person she's going to get engaged to. It is this lad that's a non-believer. And Olivia Colman plays the mother of the unbeliever and says, look, you have to make this right. You have to go and do it. So he basically goes to the church and he got the snakes and all that sort of thing, and he actually gets bitten. And so, it's like, oh, so you've got all that whole thing. Oh, we got to wait and see what happens now. Has he been? So
these people are part of a sect, and so the girl gets pregnant, and the mother says to prove yourself.
No, not to mother. The boy who got her. The boy who got her pregnant does not believe. He's not. Okay. He just wants to get. He wants to get the hell away. But
yeah.
But obviously, because he wants to do the right thing, and Olivia Colman, they're saying, "Oh, you must put this right," because they find it. But it's just the whole story is how that happens. But there's lots of interaction because she doesn't really want to say anything, and the chap she's engaged to, he's a bit suspicious, and the father's like, he's like a real zealot. Walter Goggins, who is absolutely excellent, and Olivia Colman,
who is,
he does that.
Yeah, I like. Walter Goggins? I really, really like him. I like him in Django.
He can be beaten up by a can't.
And I really enjoyed him in Ant-Man and Wasp as well.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, yeah.
Yeah. I've committed many violations, but anyway. Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say he's played some interesting roles in things like Sons of Anarchy and in Justified.
Yeah.
He does that sort of like hillbilly loon quite well, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, that's basically the story. So there's a lot of tension, a lot of smouldering tension. I mean, it takes a little while probably for the story to build. But I mean, it kept me, I watched it all the way through, I wasn't like, and I thought, I've got to watch this because, there wasn't any time I was crossing my legs and thinking, this is a bit dull. Reminded me very much of Leave No Trace, in that sort of mold. And how much I loved that film. So to me, this was a really, really top movie. And I think many more people want to see it. I mean, I'm not sure. I
certainly would have seen it had it been on a reasonable hour.
Yeah. So, I mean, the acting's great. I think the acting's first class. And I'd say it's funny to see Olivia Colman, playing a she's got like the old checkered lumberjacky type, dressed up like the old lumber. But it's interesting to see how the community actually works and how, when they go to the chapel and he's the pastor, Watergog is the pastor, and they're all sort of, I don't know, it's just something about it, because although they believe and they were like, yeah, but you can see that perhaps some are a little bit skeptical, But of course, the lad I've seen him in something else, plays Augie, which one? Thomas Mann? Is it Thomas Mann? And I've seen it. He plays the lad who doesn't, he's like just wants to get the hell off. Doesn't believe. So and obviously he gets bitten.
All right, so he gets bitten, and then does the film become a case of what happens to him, or does it become a case of?
Yeah, that's sort of the second half. Pardon?
He was in Them That Follow.
Them That Follow.
That's the one that you recognise him from.
Yeah, no, that's the one we're talking about, isn't it? So yeah.
Oh, of course, sorry.
Yeah.
So what's that one where the one that I'm thinking of the film, I'm sorry. It follows or something.
It follows, yeah. I mean,
that's what it made me.
Yeah, I know. It follows. I was funny enough. I was going to say that. I was thinking about that because that's a good film too. I really like It Follows. That's a great film. That's a whole metaphor for STDs.
For STDs, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I can't say enough that's good about this film.
He was in Kong Skull Island.
Oh yeah, that's it, Kong Skull Island, yeah.
So
I mean, I think for me, it's up amongst with the Leave No Trace sort of films.
All right, cool.
So yeah,
so 1 star then. Something like that. Yeah, no, this has got to get a strong 4. Strong 4 for me. Strong 4. Really strong 4. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's funny how I like these. You get all these major, massive, big blockbuster films. And
Did you like Winter's Bone, which is sort of a similar vibe, where it's not it's an isolated mountain community that has its own rules and its own way of doing things?
Sirorsi, whatever her name was.
No,
that was Jennifer Lawrence.
A young Jennifer Lawrence, but that's her breakout role.
I don't think I've seen Winterbone.
I think you'd like it.
Yeah, that doesn't ring a bell. So
that was on either Amazon Prime or Netflix recently.
Oh, right, okay. I'll have to check that one amongst all the others. But, No. This a highly rated film. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I really like these. I guess low budget sort of.
Where character is all.
Yeah. Because we can't blow things up, so we're gonna have to focus on story.
Yeah. It's really interesting, and some of the snakes there, they're proper snakes.
Proper bitey snakes.
Proper
What was
bitey
that
little
word
bitey snakes.
you taught us earlier, Tosin?
What word?
The word for snake. The Nigerian.
Agua. Yeah,
Agua.
the oh my God. I fixed it. The timer actually makes noise now.
That's good. Yeah. Perfect timing, little one. Perfect timing.
Yeah, agua, that's the Igbo word, is the Igbo word for snake. Actually, it's weird. I don't know what the Yoruba word for snake is. What is the Yoruba word for snake? Yeah, never mind. But agua. So that's what we should just call this film. you just yell that. Yell that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So 4 stars for that. And now we come on to the final film we're going to be talking about today, if I can stay alive long enough. Yeah. Oh, good Lord. This sore throat thing. Okay, drink of water. So this is a film called Brittany Runs a Marathon, which is the second film this week that we're going to talk about that blurs the line between what is cinema and what is Netflix or Amazon Prime or what you can watch at home. Because I think this film was released in the same weekend in both cinema and at home. So, this is a film that stars Gillian Bell, who is someone who you might have seen she's been like supporting characters in like other films and stuff. Probably the most high profile thing she was in was 22 Jump Street, in which she she plays the bad guy in 22 Jump Street, and she's like a comedian from sort of like the what's the word, the improv background kind of thing. And in this film, she plays a character called Brittany. And when you meet Brittany at the beginning of the film, she is a bit on the heavier side. She has a group of friends and they go out partying all the time and all that kind of stuff. And she is kind of the funny one in the group. So she's the one that I'm not sure. I don't think this actually happens in the film, but it's the kind of person while her friend is making out with somebody else, she's holding the coats, that kind of thing.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, and so as being a party girl and all that, she goes to the doctor and she's trying to scam some Adderall, which is something like apparently having a doctor for a wife tells me that people come into the hospital and try and feign these things so they can get these drugs. And Adderall is kind of like an ADHD drug, which apparently gives you a high. So people can take it and it's like an easily obtainable high, especially if they don't have to pay for it. So
oh, right. Yeah.
So she goes to the doctor trying to get Adderall. And the doctor actually says, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Not going to give you any Adderall. However, you could do with losing some weight, because at the moment you are putting on, you essentially, your weight is becoming a hazard to your health. And she's like, what are you talking about, doctor? You're trying to fat shame me, everything like that, coming here looking for help and everything. And he's like, hey, look, no, this is not fat shaming. This is just science. You are going to be in trouble with your blood pressure, with your cholesterol, all that kind of stuff, with your liver, if you don't slow down and if you don't lose some weight and if you don't stop drinking and all that kind of stuff. So he says maybe you should go join the gym. She goes and has a look at whether she's going to join the gym and realizes how much do the gyms cost? Rubbish, I'm just going to go outside and run. So then the film becomes this whole thing about how she starts running and what that actually means for her and how she starts trying to look after herself. And it's all about, like, you know, the first time that she goes out and tries to run and she just imagine everybody looking at her and thinking, oh my God, why is she trying to run? And so she just can't handle it and then she runs and she runs back into the house. That kind of thing. She goes out, she's running, she's wearing the wrong bra, she's wearing the wrong shoes, all that. So eventually she has a neighbor in this New York apartment that she lives in who gets her into running. And so then from there it just becomes about how she runs and how the running becomes kind of like a catalyst for her to think, you know what, I actually really need to change some things in my life. Some of my friends might not be the best for me. My lifestyle might not be the best for me. Going out partying every night might not be the best for me. And it follows her journey. And apparently it's based on a true story of the director, the guy who directed it, one of his friends is the real life Brittany. So and then she has this goal, and the goal is to run the New York Marathon. And you watch her as she goes through this whole thing, and as her body changes, and as she gets fitter, and she gets better and better and running, and then it goes from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, where she just seems to it becomes all-encompassing, and she starts ignoring her family because, oh, no, I've got to run, I've got to go for a run in the morning. She's the kind of person who they're like, oh, you're going to come see us? She's like, oh, no, I'm so sorry, you see, I've got this run tomorrow. So you can't come down for my birthday? No, I've got to go run. And the good thing about it is that the character herself, the character of Brittany, is not she's not a saint. She's not oh my God, like, and look at this, I started running, everything was fine with my life. She's still kind of, and it talks a lot about sort of like what she's internalized or what people say about her. So if they say, oh, you're the fat funny girl, and what she thinks about that, and then how, like, she gets to this point where she starts running, and like the less fat she gets, it's like whether she starts actually liking the attention she's getting because she's not, so she's slimmer now and all that kind of stuff. So I think that it's one of these, as you said, Shaun, you know, when you talk about a smaller film that focuses more on stories and everything like that. So it gets into a lot of issues which I don't think get given this kind of, they don't get given this kind of spotlight. Treatment. Yeah, spotlight treatment, because usually, like, if you have a fat person in a film, it's kind of like a one-note thing about whether they're struggling with their weight or anything like that. But it's and it's funny, it's even funny where there's a scene later in the film where it's how she starts treating other fat people. And I thought it was quite interesting. I thought it had some interesting ideas. I feel it sort of peters out towards the end. I think towards the end of the film, it's kind of like okay, and your point is, and it doesn't what?
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, I just reminded me when you said that she goes out and then goes back again. It reminded me once when I thought I'd do, I mean, I thought I'd dull running, but I remember once I got up quite early in the morning. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go for it. I put on tracksuits and all that. I got out of the front door. I ran down the road a little bit, and I thought, oh no! And I turned around and come back in. Yeah, I must have gone all of like 20 yards or 50 yards.
So it's funny because people say that apparently that is quite relatable. The bit where she tries to go for a run for the first time, people find that quite relatable.
Yeah, I do.
There was a film with Simon Pegg in a number of years ago now, Run Fat Boy Run.
Yes. Do
you think it's got a sort of hints of that to it, where it can sort of transform lives as well as physical fitness?
It has hints of that. Okay, so now you see, Run Fat Boy Run has more the Yeah, actually, that's a very good comparison. It has more. He has the whole thing where he's running because he wants to see his child and he's trying to get his woman back and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and that's that whole. And essentially, this is not so much about that bit. This is so much. It's a lot more about focusing on her and why she's doing it for herself. So there isn't really an external push to say go do this, because I know in Run Fat Boy Run he's trying to run the marathon, because if he runs the marathon and if he beats the man that his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend is going out with now, then maybe she will come back to him. And this film
because that'll make him a better man.
It'll make him a better man, and this film doesn't really have anything like that. It's just a case that she's just doing it because it starts off because the doctor tells her to, and then it gets on because it just becomes, actually, this is good for me. So it's a lot more about her than it is about a sort of external impetus, so to say.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. I would give it a 3 because I do think I think it starts off interesting. It starts off with but then it sort of peters out, and when it finishes, you're kind of like, well, I guess there isn't really any drama in somebody training for a marathon and then running a marathon. Ta-da! but it's still, I think it's still a worthwhile movie. I think Gillian Bell is really, really good in it, especially because they don't use any sort of fat suit or anything like that, and she actually did the training. So as you're watching the film, you're seeing her losing weight because she did all the training in the film. So she starts off at a certain weight, and apparently she lost quite a bit of weight during the course of the film to the point. So essentially, the journey of the character is the journey that she went through in real life. So she actually did I guess she did a bit of a Christian Bale and changed her body, but through exercise as opposed to starving herself.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, 3 out of 5. All right, cool. And now we've got to the end, people. We've got to the end, and I'm here clutching a bottle of something that I have to drink soon because I'm fading quick. But all that's left to do is to figure out who won this week. And this is, guys, it's another close one. And
I couldn't call it this week. I know it's going to be very close.
Yeah.
It started off, I'll tell you what, it started off with a first round. We had Knives Out, and by the time we collected all of our scores and everything like that, we had a 3.5 for Knives Out. Then we had The Irishman. The Irishman had a 4. So, the Netflix is ahead. Then we had Charlie's Angels. Shaun and I bucked the trend of people on my Facebook anyway, saying that, oh, it was a rubbish film. And we said, no, we loved it. Great film. It got a 4. Shaun, you saw The Capture. We got a 4. So that's it. We're even in that round. So Netflix is still ahead. Them that follow. Shaun loved it. Thought it was. You sounded like you were short of saying one of your best films of the year, and and gave that a 4. And then we ended up, and so at the moment, Netflix is still ahead, and then we ended up with Brittany runs a marathon. We had a 3, which means that cinema.
I wouldn't have been able to call that one.
By half a point.
Cinema. Oh, wow. Less than that. It's like 0.1. 0.1.
Wow.
Yeah, 0.1.
Wow.
Cinema.
It was close last week as well, wasn't it?
It was a 0.1 week last week as well. Yeah. But that went for Netflix, and this one 0.1 cinema takes it this week. So, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for putting on with me, coughing all the way through this. And
we've barely registered.
And all that's left to say is a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Yes, we will see you guys next week when hopefully some of the women I know will have watched Charlie's Angels, and then I can actually finally say, come on, tell me if I'm being sexist here. All right, cool. Thank you very much. See you guys next week.